At 082 Thul on November 3, 1944, Corporal Jimmy Caldwell was thinking about his best friend's last words. Private First Class Danny Martinez had died 18 hours earlier, shot by a Japanese sniper none of them could find. Danny had been 19 years old, from El Paso, Texas. He'd been talking about his girlfriend back home, about the ring he was going to buy her when the war ended, when the bullet hit him in the neck. He died in Jimmy's arms. It took 4 minutes. Danny tried to speak, but couldn't. Blood filled his throat. Jimmy pressed his hands against the wound, but the bleeding wouldn't stop. The corpsman arrived too late. There was nothing anyone could do. Danny was the third Marine in their platoon killed by snipers in 3 days. Before him, Corporal Robert Hayes from Tennessee, 24 years old, married, 2 kids, shot through the head while moving between positions. He died instantly on November 1st. Before Hayes, Private Thomas Williams from Ohio, 20 years old, farm boy, shot through the chest on October 31st while providing covering fire for his squad. He lived for 6 hours, conscious most of that time, asking if he was going to make it. The corpsman lied and said yes. All 3 dead from shots fired at ranges beyond what their M1 Garands could effectively return fire. The mathematics were brutal. M1 Garand's effective range 500 yards with iron sights. The Japanese snipers were shooting from 600 to 800 yards, outside American range, inside Japanese range. The Japanese snipers were using Type 97 rifles with telescopic sights, 6.5 millimeter ammunition, effective range 800 meters and trained hands. They'd positioned themselves in trees, caves, and ridgelines at distances where American rifles couldn't reach them accurately. Standard Marine Corps doctrine said to call for artillery or air support when facing entrenched snipers at extended range, but artillery took time to coordinate. Air support wasn't always available. The Marines on Peleliu were fighting for every yard of coral rock against 11,000 Japanese defenders who'd spent months fortifying the island. And Marines were dying while waiting for help that sometimes never came. Jimmy had brought something to Peleliu that might change that. His father's Remington Model 700 hunting rifle. Bolt action. 5-round internal magazine. Chambered for .30-06 Springfield. The same cartridge the M1 Garand used, but with hand-loaded rounds Jimmy had assembled himself before shipping out, optimized for long-range accuracy. The rifle had a Leopold 4x scope, not military issue. Commercial hunting equipment that cost Jimmy 3 months of wages from his job at Morrison's hardware store in Missoula, Montana. This was the rifle Jimmy had learned to shoot with at age 14 in the Bitterroot Mountains. The rifle he'd used to take elk at distances up to 600 yards. The rifle that had put meat on his family's table during the Depression when his father couldn't find work. His platoon sergeant, Staff Sergeant Frank Morrison, had seen the rifle when Jimmy unpacked it at Camp Pendleton in California before deployment. Morrison had 11 years in the Marines. He'd fought at Guadalcanal. He knew weapons. He knew what worked in combat. He told Jimmy the civilian rifle was mail-order trash that would get him killed. He said bolt-action rifles were obsolete. Semi-automatic was the future. The M1 Garand fired 8 rounds as fast as you could pull the trigger. Jimmy's hunting rifle fired 5 rounds and required manually working the bolt between each shot. The company commander, Captain Richard Foster, had similar opinions. He said there was a reason the Marine Corps issued M1 Garands. They were proven. They were reliable. They were what Marines used. The company armorer, a gunny sergeant with 15 years in, refused to even service Jimmy's rifle. He said if it broke, Jimmy was on his own. No parts, no support. The Marine Corps didn't maintain civilian equipment, but Jimmy kept the rifle anyway. He carried it through training. He carried it onto the troop ship. He carried it ashore at Peleliu on September 15, 1944, when the 1st Marine Division hit the beaches. For 6 weeks, he'd carried both weapons. The M1 Garand for regular combat, the Remington for, he wasn't sure what, insurance maybe, a piece of home, a connection to his father and the Montana mountains. Now 18 hours after watching Danny Martinez die, Jimmy knew exactly what the rifle was for. If you want to see how Jimmy's hunting rifle killed 8 Japanese snipers in 4 hours and changed Marine Corps doctrine forever, please hit that like button. It helps us share more forgotten stories like this. And please subscribe if you haven't already. Back to Jimmy. The battle for Peleliu tracked at 49 days earlier, September 15, 1944. The 1st Marine Division, 20,000 men, hit beaches the Japanese had spent months fortifying. Intelligence said the island would fall in 4 days. That was the plan. The reality was different. Peleliu was 8 square miles of coral rock, caves, and ridges. The Japanese commander, Colonel Kunio Nakagawa, had 11,000 troops and a defensive strategy that broke from Japanese doctrine. No banzai charges, no suicidal beach defense. Instead, defense in depth, fortified caves, interlocking fields of fire, fighting positions connected by 500 miles of tunnels. The Marines took horrific casualties. By October 15th, 1 month in, the 1st Marine Division had lost 6,500 men, killed, wounded, or missing. That was 1/3 of the division's strength. They were still fighting. Jimmy's company, K Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, had landed on September 15th with 235 men. By November 3rd, they were down to 160 effectives, 75 casualties in 49 days, some killed, more wounded, some evacuated with heat exhaustion or combat fatigue. The worst were the sniper casualties. Japanese snipers operated differently on Peleliu than they had on other islands. They weren't looking for targets of opportunity. They were conducting systematic operations designed to eliminate Marine leadership and disrupt unit cohesion. They targeted sergeants first, NCOs who moved between positions, who directed fire, who kept squads functioning, then radio men. Anyone carrying a radio was a priority target because killing them disrupted communications. Then corpsmen, medics trying to treat wounded Marines. The snipers would wound a Marine deliberately, shot to the leg or arm, non-fatal if treated quickly. Then they'd wait for the corpsman to respond. When the corpsman reached the wounded Marine, the sniper would kill them both. This happened repeatedly. Marines learned to not call for corpsmen immediately. They'd wait, assess the tactical situation, try to suppress the sniper first. But that meant wounded Marines bled out while waiting for help. The psychological impact was devastating. Marines couldn't trust their positions. Movement drew fire from snipers they couldn't see. They'd take cover in shell craters or behind coral outcroppings, thinking they were safe, and get shot from angles they hadn't considered. By early November, K Company had lost 7 men to sniper fire in 11 days. Corporal Hayes on November 1st, Private Williams on October 31st, Private Martinez on November 2nd. Before them, Lance Corporal Johnson, Private Stevens, Private First Class Chen, Corporal Davidson, 7 Marines, all shot at ranges beyond effective M1 Garand counterfire. The company had designated marksmen, Marines selected for their shooting ability, and issued M1C rifles with 2.5x telescopic sights. But the M1C was just an accurized M1 Garand. Same cartridge, same basic platform. Effective range may be extended to 600 yards with the scope. Still not enough to reach the Japanese positions at 700 to 800 yards. Staff Sergeant Morrison had requested Springfield M1903 sniper rifles with unrelay scopes, the Marine Corps standard sniper rifle that had been used since World War I, but those rifles were in short supply. Priority went to scout sniper units. Regular infantry companies had to make do with what they had, so Marines kept dying. Jimmy had watched 3 of his friends die in 3 days, all from the same area of high ground 600 yards north of their position. A ridgeline with caves and jungle cover, perfect sniper terrain. Artillery had hit it twice, airstrikes had hit it once. The snipers would go quiet for a few hours after each strike, then resume operations. They were in tunnels. They'd emerge, shoot, and disappear before counter-battery fire could locate them. On the evening of November 2nd, after Danny Martinez died, Jimmy made a decision. He was going to hunt those snipers with the rifle his sergeant called trash. He spent that night preparing. He'd brought 60 rounds of hand-loaded ammunition to Peleliu. He'd used 12 rounds during the initial landing, taking shots at distant targets when his M1 Garand wasn't accurate enough. That left 48 rounds. Each round was loaded carefully. Sierra 180 grain boat-tail hollow point bullets. These weren't military ball ammunition. They were hunting bullets designed for long-range accuracy and terminal performance on large game. Jimmy had loaded them in Montana before shipping out, using his father's reloading press and carefully measured powder charges. Military regulations technically prohibited hand-loaded ammunition, but nobody had searched Jimmy's gear for ammunition. He'd manufactured himself. He'd kept it in a waterproof bag with his personal effects. The Remington 700 was in decent condition considering the environment. Jimmy had cleaned it every 3 days, whether he'd fired it or not. Salt air, humidity, coral dust, all of it degraded weapons. The Leopold scope had held 0 despite the conditions. Jimmy had confirmed that by firing at long-range targets during lulls in fighting, On the morning of November 3rd at 0530 hours, Jimmy told his fire team leader, Corporal Mike Santos, what he was planning. Santos was from California, 23 years old. He'd been with K Company since Guadalcanal. He knew Jimmy was a good shot. He'd seen Jimmy make hits at distances where other Marines missed. Santos asked, "You really think you can reach them?" Jimmy said, "I've killed elk at 600 yards. These guys aren't elk, but the principle's the same. Elk don't shoot back. I'm aware of that." Santos thought about it. Then he said, "Morrison's going to lose his mind if he catches you using that civilian rifle." "Only if I miss," Jimmy said. Santos smiled. "All right, what do you need?" "A spotter, someone with binoculars, and someone to watch our backs while I'm focused downrange. I'll get Rodriguez. He's got the good binos, and I'll come with you." At 0630 hours, Jimmy, Santos, and Private First Class Tony Rodriguez moved forward from K Company's position. They went 200 yards north, into a sector that had been cleared 2 days earlier, but wasn't actively held. The ground was torn up from artillery, shell craters, destroyed vegetation, dead coral. They found a position in a crater with good lines of sight to the northern ridgeline. The crater was deep enough to provide cover. The rim gave them a stable shooting position. Jimmy set up the Remington. He used his pack as a rest. The rifle was comfortable in his hands. He'd carried it through Montana mountains for 8 years. He knew its weight, its balance, the exact pressure needed on the trigger. Rodriguez had 7x50 binoculars, Marine Corps issue. He glassed the ridgeline 600 yards north, looking for movement, for anything that might indicate sniper positions. Santos watched their rear and flanks. The Japanese on Peleliu had a habit of infiltrating American positions at night. It was possible they had people behind K Company's lines. If someone stumbled on Jimmy's position while he was focused through a scope, they'd all die. At 0820 hours, Rodriguez spotted the first target. Movement, ridge, left side, about 580 meters. Jimmy adjusted his position, looked through the Leopold scope. The 4x magnification wasn't much by modern standards, but it was enough. He could see the ridgeline clearly. He scanned left. There, a figure moving between two positions, partially concealed by vegetation, carrying a rifle. Range approximately 580 meters by Jimmy's estimation. That matched Rodriguez's spotting. The figure stopped, settled into a position. Jimmy could see the distinctive shape of a Type 97 rifle with scope. The sniper was setting up for a shot. Jimmy controlled his breathing. Slow inhale, slow exhale. Wait for the natural pause between breaths. That's when the body is most stable. He calculated the shot in his head. 580 meters, approximately 6,330 yards. The pointy 80 meters, approximately 630 yards. The pointy 80 meters, approximately 6,330 yards. The pointy 80 meters, approximately 6,330 yards. The pointy 80 meters, approximately 6,320 chiefs and self the range pipe chiefs. Slide. What about two there someplace dot bait nor what the sate not sting. 30 that climbs low aimed would drop significantly at that range. He'd need to hold high. Wind was minimal, maybe 2 to 3 miles per hour from the left. He'd compensate slightly right. The sniper was facing south, toward K Company's position. He was looking for targets. He had no idea someone was looking at him through a scope, from a different angle. Jimmy placed the crosshairs on the sniper's upper chest, held high to account for bullet drop, held slightly right for wind. He squeezed the trigger. The Remington kicked into his shoulder. The sound cracked across the battlefield. 580 meters away, the Japanese sniper jerked backward and fell. He tumbled down the slope, his rifle clattering after him. Jimmy worked the bolt. The empty cartridge ejected. He chambered another round. He kept his scope on the area, watching for movement. Rodriguez was watching through binoculars. "Good hit. He's down. Not moving." Santos said, "Holy shit, you actually got him." Jimmy said nothing. He was scanning the ridgeline for additional targets. One sniper down. At least 2 more to go based on the firing patterns over the past 3 days. Japanese snipers typically worked in pairs or 3-man teams. 1 shooter, 1 spotter, sometimes a 3rd man for security. At 0847 hours, Rodriguez spotted the second target. Right side of ridge, 640 meters, near the large tree. Jimmy found it. Another sniper. This one was in a better position, higher up. More concealment. He was watching the area where the first sniper had fallen. He'd heard the shot. He knew someone was hunting him. This shot was harder, longer range. The target was partially obscured by vegetation. Jimmy could see the sniper's head and shoulders. Not much of a target, but enough. 640 meters, 700 yards. The bullet drop would be even more significant. Jimmy adjusted his hold, aiming what felt like 3 feet above the target's head. The Leopold scope's crosshairs were at the very edge of being useful at this range. He controlled his breathing again. Slow, steady, finger on the trigger, gentle pressure. The rifle fired. The recoil was familiar, almost comforting. At 640 meters, the second sniper fell backward. He disappeared into the vegetation. Jimmy couldn't confirm the kill visually. Rodriguez watched through binoculars for 30 seconds. "I think you got him. I saw him go down. No movement. 2 down." But Jimmy knew there were more. The firing patterns over 3 days suggested at least 3 or 4 snipers working this sector. They were coordinated. They communicated. They knew where Marines were positioned. The question was whether the remaining snipers would relocate now that 2 of their team were dead. At 09:10 hours, Jimmy got his answer. A shot rang out from the ridgeline, closer than before, maybe 400 meters. The round snapped past Jimmy's position and hit Coral behind them. Someone was shooting at them. A Japanese sniper had located Jimmy's position and was returning fire. Santos said, "We've been spotted." Jimmy didn't move. He scanned the ridgeline through his scope. Closer positions, 240 to 400 meters. The sniper had to be in that range based on the sound of the shot. Another shot. This one closer. The round hit the rim of the crater 5 feet from Jimmy's head. Coral fragments sprayed. Rodriguez said, "We need to move." Now, Jimmy said, "Hold." He was scanning methodically, left to right, looking for movement, looking for the muzzle flash from the next shot, looking for anything. There, movement at 240 meters. Low position, behind coral outcropping, partially concealed. Jimmy saw the glint of a scope lens. The Japanese sniper was good. He'd moved close, aggressive. He was trying to flank Jimmy's position and eliminate the threat. Bad decision. At 240 meters, Jimmy didn't need to account for much bullet drop. The shot was almost point blank by long-range standards. He put the crosshairs on the visible portion of the sniper's position and fired. The round hit. Jimmy saw the impact. The sniper's rifle fell. The sniper slumped. 3 down. But the close-range engagement had given away Jimmy's exact position. If there were more snipers, they now knew where he was. Santos said, "We need to relocate." Jimmy agreed. They'd been in this position for 50 minutes. In sniper operations, that was too long. You shot. You moved. Staying in one place got you killed. They gathered their equipment and moved 100 yards east to another crater. Different angle, different lines of sight. They settled in and resumed scanning. At 0955 hours, Rodriguez spotted the 4th target. Center ridge, high position, maybe 720 meters. Jimmy found it. A sniper positioned high on the ridgeline. Excellent cover. This one had been watching the area where Jimmy's first 2 kills had happened. He was trying to locate the American counter-sniper. 720 meters, 787 yards. This was at the very edge of what Jimmy could reach reliably with his equipment. The bullet drop would be extreme. Wind would matter more. The margin for error was almost 0. But the Japanese sniper was in a static position, not moving. That made the shot possible. Jimmy calculated. He held the crosshairs what felt like 4 feet above the target. He accounted for a slight breeze from the left. He controlled his breathing. Slow, steady. He fired. The shot seemed to take forever. At these distances, you could almost track the bullet through the scope. The round arced through the air. At 720 meters, the 4th sniper fell. He tumbled down the slope, his body rolling until it disappeared into vegetation. Rodriguez watched through binoculars. Hit confirmed. He's down. 4 Japanese snipers, 4 shots, 4 kills, all at ranges between 240 and 720 meters. By 10:30 hours, the ridgeline had gone quiet. No more shots, no more movement. Either the remaining Japanese snipers had withdrawn, or Jimmy had eliminated all of them. Santos said, "We should get back. Morrison's probably wondering where we are." They returned to K Company's position at 10:45 hours. Staff Sergeant Morrison was waiting. He saw the Remington 700 in Jimmy's hands. He saw the empty brass casings Jimmy had collected and put in his pocket. He knew immediately what had happened. Morrison said, "Caldwell, what the hell have you been doing?" Jimmy said, "Hunting, Sergeant. With that civilian rifle I told you to leave in your gear." "Yes, Sergeant." Morrison stared at him for a long moment. Then he asked, "How many?" 4 confirmed. Maybe more. Rodriguez was spotting. Rodriguez confirmed. 4 kills. Ranges from 240 to 720 meters. Clean hits. Morrison looked at the ridgeline where Japanese snipers had been killing Marines for 3 days. It had been quiet all morning. No shots since Jimmy returned. Morrison said,
720 meters, with a hunting rifle. Yes, Sergeant. Morrison thought about it. Then he said, "Show me the rifle." Jimmy handed him the Remington 700. Morrison examined it. He looked at the Leopold scope. He worked the bolt action. He checked the chamber. He looked at the ammunition Jimmy still had. Morrison had fought on Guadalcanal. He'd seen combat for 2 years. He knew weapons. He knew what worked and what didn't. He handed the rifle back to Jimmy. "Keep it, and keep doing what you're doing." Word spread through K Company quickly. The new guy with the hunting rifle had killed 4 Japanese snipers. Marines who'd lost friends to sniper fire wanted to know more. Could Jimmy teach them? Could they get civilian rifles? Could they use telescopic sights? Captain Foster, the company commander, summoned Jimmy that afternoon. Foster had heard the reports. 4 Japanese snipers eliminated. Ranges up to 720 meters. With civilian equipment. Foster said, "Corporal, I'm told you've been using unauthorized equipment." Jimmy said, "Yes, sir. Against my explicit guidance." "Yes, sir." Foster looked at him. Then he asked the same question Morrison had asked. "How many?" "4 confirmed, sir. This morning. Possibly more over the past 6 weeks. I've taken long-range shots when the M1 wasn't effective. Range, 240 to 720 meters today, sir. Previous engagements up to 650 meters. Foster was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "The battalion S2 reports no sniper fire from that ridgeline since this morning. That's the first quiet day we've had in a week." "Yes, sir." "Do you have more ammunition?" 44 rounds remaining, sir." Foster made a decision. "Corporal Caldwell, you are hereby designated a K Company's auxiliary marksman. You will continue to carry your Remington rifle in addition to your M1 Garand. You will engage long-range targets at your discretion. Understood?" "Yes, sir." "And Corporal?" "Yes, sir." Good shooting. Over the next 4 days, Jimmy killed 4 more Japanese snipers, all at ranges beyond 500 meters, all with the Remington 700. On November 7th, he killed a sniper at 680 meters, who'd been targeting Marines from a cave position. 1 shot. Clean kill. On November 9th, he killed 2 snipers operating as a team, 540 and 590 meters. 2 shots. Both kills within 30 seconds. On November 11th, he killed another sniper at 620 meters. The sniper had been targeting corpsmen trying to evacuate wounded Marines. 8 confirmed kills in 8 days, all at ranges where M1 Garands were effective. Japanese sniper activity in K Company's sector dropped dramatically. The snipers who'd been killing Marines with impunity for weeks either withdrew or changed tactics. They stopped taking long-range shots. They stopped operating in positions where Jimmy could reach them. The psychological impact was significant. Japanese snipers had operated freely because they knew American rifles couldn't effectively counterfire at 600+ meters. Now they knew someone could reach them. That knowledge changed their behavior. Other Marines in K Company noticed. Sniper casualties dropped from 7 in 11 days to 0 in the next 2 weeks. By mid-November, Marines from other companies were asking about Jimmy's rifle. Could they get civilian rifles? Could they mount scopes? Could they use hand-loaded ammunition? The answers were complicated. Officially, civilian rifles weren't authorized. But unofficially, if it worked, commanders looked the other way. Several Marines wrote home asking family members to ship hunting rifles. The Marine Corps didn't encourage it, but they didn't prohibit it either. By December, 3 other Marines in the 5th Regiment had civilian rifles with scopes, 2 Remingtons, 1 Winchester. They operated as auxiliary marksmen, taking long-range shots when standard M1 Garands weren't effective. The results were measurable. Sniper casualties decreased across the regiment, but the Remington 700 had a problem. Jimmy was running out of ammunition. He'd started with 60 hand-loaded rounds. By mid-November, he was down to 18 rounds. Each shot had to count. He couldn't waste ammunition on uncertain targets. He requested 36 ammunition through standard supply channels. The Marine Corps had plenty. It was standard issue for M1 Garands and M19003 Springfields, but the ammunition was military ball, not optimized for long-range accuracy. Jimmy test-fired military ball ammunition through his Remington on November 18th. The accuracy was noticeably worse than his handloads. At 600 meters, military ball grouped 18 inches compared to 8 inches for his hand-loaded rounds. Still usable, but not ideal. He switched to military ball ammunition for the remainder of his time on Peleliu. The accuracy degradation meant he had to be more selective about targets. He couldn't reliably hit at 700+ meters anymore, but 500 to 600 meters remained viable. The battle for Peleliu officially ended on November 27, 1944. The 1st Oblast nor Chunditskernarl Marine Division was relieved by the 81st Infantry Division. K Company had been on Peleliu for 73 days. They'd lost 89 men killed and 187 wounded, out of an original strength of 235. Jimmy survived. So did his Remington 700. He'd fired approximately 45 rounds in combat, 8 confirmed sniper kills. unknown number of additional kills at extended ranges, where confirmation wasn't possible. The rifle had performed flawlessly despite the environment. The Leopold scope held 0. The bolt action never failed. The accuracy remained consistent, even after thousands of yards of carrying through jungle, coral, and combat. After Peleliu, K Company returned to Pavuvu for rest and refit. Jimmy kept the Remington. By then the Marine Corps had unofficially acknowledged that civilian rifles had value in specific situations. The official position was that designated marksmen should use M1C rifles with scopes. But if a Marine happened to have a civilian rifle and happened to be effective with it, commanders didn't interfere. Jimmy served through the end of the war. K Company participated in the Okinawa campaign in April 1945. Jimmy used his Remington there too. He added 6 more confirmed sniper kills, all at ranges beyond 500 meters. After the war, Jimmy returned to Montana. He went back to work at Morrison's hardware store. He married his high school sweetheart in 1946. They had 3 children. He hunted elk every fall in the Bitterroot Mountains with the same Remington 700 he'd carried through the Pacific. He never talked much about the war. When people asked, he'd say he was with the 5th Marines. He'd mention Peleliu and Okinawa, but he didn't talk about the sniping. He didn't talk about the 8 Japanese soldiers he'd killed with his hunting rifle. Danny Martinez's family visited Jimmy in 1947. They wanted to thank him. They'd heard from other Marines that Jimmy had killed the snipers who'd been targeting their sector. They believed Jimmy had avenged their son. Jimmy didn't know what to say. He hadn't been thinking about revenge. He'd been thinking about stopping Marines from dying. But if Martinez's family found comfort in thinking Jimmy had avenged Danny, he wasn't going to contradict them. The Remington 700 hung over Jimmy's fireplace for 40 years. He used it every hunting season. It shot accurately. The Leopold scope still held 0. The rifle that had killed Japanese snipers at 700 meters killed Montana elk at similar ranges. In 1989, Jimmy was diagnosed with lung cancer. He'd been a smoker since the war. The cancer was aggressive. Doctors gave him 6 months. He lived 8 months, long enough to see his grandchildren, long enough to put his affairs in order. Before he died, he gave the Remington to his oldest son, Michael. He told Michael the rifle's history, the 8 confirmed kills on Peleliu, the 6 on Okinawa, the ranges, the conditions, the fact that the Marine Corps had called it mail-order trash until it started saving Marines' lives. Michael kept the rifle. He didn't hunt. He wasn't interested in shooting, but he understood the rifle's significance. It represented something important about his father, about improvisation, about using what you have available to solve problems. In 2015, Michael donated the rifle to the National Museum of the Marine Corps in Virginia. It sits in a display case with a placard describing its history. Most visitors walk past without stopping. It looks like any other hunting rifle. Worn wood, scratched metal, an old Leopold scope, but it's not. It's the rifle that proved civilian equipment could outperform military issue in specific situations. It's the rifle that killed 8 Japanese snipers when M1 Garands couldn't reach them. It's the rifle that changed how the Marine Corps thought about long-range marksmanship. The principles Jimmy Caldwell demonstrated on Peleliu influenced military doctrine for decades. The Marine Corps eventually adopted dedicated sniper programs with specialized rifles and training, but the fundamental lesson remained. Sometimes the best tool isn't the one officially issued. Sometimes it's the one that actually works.
If this story moved you the way it moved us, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Every single like tells YouTube to show this story to more people. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We're rescuing forgotten stories from dusty archives every single day. Stories about Marines who used hunting rifles and determination to protect their brothers. Real people, real heroism. Drop a comment right now and tell us where you're watching from. Watching from the United States, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia. Our community stretches across the entire world. You're not just a viewer, you're part of keeping these memories alive. Tell us your location. Tell us if someone in your family served in the Pacific. Tell us if you've ever hunted with a Remington 700. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for making sure Jimmy Caldwell and Danny Martinez don't disappear into silence. These heroes deserve to be remembered, and you're helping make that happen.